Hi YouTube! I decided to write another type of video today and share my experience with Pickle. I have mentioned it a few times already, but if you missed that or if you are here for the first time, Pickle is a configuration language from Apple, released earlier this year, somewhere in February. It's a fresh language, fresh environment. There is no big community around it, but I became very curious about what it can and what it can't, obviously. So I gave it a try with my relatively small project, and as introduction, I think it's worth to mention reasons why I choose that way, because hey, we can go with just environment variables, we can do whatever we want with config JSON. That's true, absolutely, but I was just unhappy with all the available methods and options to go with, so I decided to try something new. At some point I understood that I was a bit fanatic about improving things and did not consider, for example, the way I will deploy it, but I will get to it closer toward the end of this video. Here is my Go repository that I've been using it for. Yes, very important thing, I'm using Pickle with Go bindings, and this is the way I wanted to use it. So as soon as there are bindings and there is a generator that can generate Go structs for us, for our configs based on Pickle definitions, I used that way as a convenient one. I thought it is convenient one. One of the things I spotted, that generator is a bit broken itself, and for almost a month nothing changed there. My fixes were not approved and maintainers seems to be unhappy with that, but yeah, the point was that you can have a config file in your repository, and if you don't have a config file and you have a globally installed generator package with go install, then at some point all the paths to the project are built with relatively to that configuration file that is a default one being buried deep somewhere in your file system. And the fix is available, but I don't know why it's not there. There are clearly a problem with handling the project directory, but oh well. I did what I did. I did my best, what I could, so it's not my problem anymore. Okay, let's move on. So first of all, there is a configs folder, and I have a bunch of Pickle files here. So just if you are not too familiar with it, so here is the simplest form of Pickle file. These definitions with Go package and import are necessary for my use case, for Go, for working with Go, for working with Go bindings. Properly generate all the stuff and put the files. Basically this one say where to put the files, and this is the import of Go package. Let me switch the screen. Okay. So yeah, very simple definition. With Pickle you can not only just set some values or set some or read some values from file environment variables or whatever. You can also define a struct of your config, and that was one of the major things that attracted my attention, because I sometimes find it inconvenient to introduce new variables, new environment variables, to find a good naming for it, to provide documentation for it. It requires a lot of time, a lot of effort. If you're not working alone, obviously, or you're doing it for yourself, for your future self, it's still something that needs to be done. In case of Packle, I found out that it would be great to just use the specific form that could be understandable by everyone in the team, or at least between, let's say, backend team and the DevOps team, and then you don't have to document all the details. You just need to prepare it reasonably following your conventions, and that's it. This was the first thing. So each file represents actually a module. It's a pickle thing, right? So default pickle file would look like with a module definition, and here we have just definitions of properties. There are different type of properties. You can learn more in documentation. I will just briefly introduce what I've been doing. So I got a bunch of such files, and yeah, for example, separate config for CLI application that I'm using for mostly for executing database migrations. And here is the app dev, so my definition of my main config. And if we follow this path right here, app config app. So this is exactly the struct that is defined in this file. So it's pretty convenient, and this thing here means actually this is a validation, custom validation. So each time this config is evaluated, this value is tested against this rule, and all properties has some types, so it's strictly typed. And here is, for example, a custom type alias. So this is basically an enum. So I say that here it's defined that there is state storage type, which is of type enum that has a specific values, right? So as you see, this config is really descriptive. Then I thought that it would be great to mostly separate default values and structure like this file and the real values I want to use. So here is a file with real values. As you see, it has no imports, no definitions. It uses amends. So amends is basically it overrides it, and I import the file and allows to overwrite anything in that file. So it's really simple to define a structure and then just put some values in specific places of that structure. All is looking perfect right here, right? That was the way. Later on, I added a pickle project, and this is the thing I had where my issues with Go generator started. So basically, pickle project allows you to define what your project is, and it must amend a default project. And in this case, what I have done, I have defined my dependencies, which are Redis and DB. I'm importing them from somewhere else. I will go there shortly. So how it works, basically this @Redis imports exactly this Redis. And this Redis here has pickle project as well. And here I define it as a package. I have not used base URI and URL because I knew I won't publish it. I was just playing around. I was just testing things out. And now I know for sure that I will be reworking it. So that's the reason I'm recording this video right now. So why I put this into the package folder and in the separate packages there, I was considering this to be a base for my future projects, and I thought that, okay, I will reuse it. First thing that didn't went that well is this definition for the Go generator, which uses the hard-coded values. So it will be hard to reuse this file if I would like it to reuse it exactly this way with a different project, because it will definitely have different path, different name. The other thing is that this file won't be actually imported by Go because it's not a Go file, and so these files have to be actually managed in a different way separately, and that's a bit different part, how to manage these configs. So these things are not working for one more reason, because if I'm good with this, so far I'm good with this, I'm not good with this. So this is a Docker file, right? So that's the way how I'm building it right now. I know that there is nothing else in my packages that could interfere or that would drastically increase the amount of code of necessary files in my production image, in my runtime image. Despite that fact, I don't like it here. So this is the main reason why I will get rid of this pickle projects and pickle files here in the package, and this will become part of this config pickle and generated config pickle as well. So it will be clearly per project files, all of them. But if you think that you want and you really need to share the files, then you can go with this package definition, publish it, and then you can reuse it with Pickle itself. Pickle will be able to download it. The thing that I mentioned in the beginning that I was missing, that I was so fascinated with all these fancy things that Pickle can do, I have not spent enough time to think how I will actually manage the config. I thought that, okay, I will implement it and then I will see. So, as I said, one way is to define all your structure in the packages, in the separate packages, distribute them as a pickle packages. And that's actually the way you should move on if you want to do that. But the main problem was, let's say, this deploy pickle. This deploy pickle contains my production values right now. And as you see, I got Redis URL, database host, and bunch of other things overridden from the default or development config. And this file is under Git. It's under source control, and this is basically a violation of 12-factor application where configuration must be managed separately. So this is basically the reason why I have to reconsider this. In order to make it more flexible, I have to use more environment variables. And using more environment variables means I'm getting back to environment variables. So my initial idea was to reduce amount of environment variables and documentation that it requires. And the tricky part here is I have the, yes, let's generate the test JSON. So if you pay attention to this JSON, so this basically is a full config, right? So everything is exported right now. A bunch of things should go to environment variables, ports, logger, debug, another debug. Yeah, there are multi-debugs I've implemented, databases, passwords, URL. So all these things should become an environment variable. And there are basically nothing left after that. So everything is as environment variable again. So why do I need pickle? So that's the reason I'm not going to use it in other projects and further without it is until it's really necessary. I mean, probably the scale, when it's too big, then probably I would consider using pickle again. Okay, another thing that made me sad when I realized what's going on, and the thing here is that you can see all of this structs or references. You know what it means, right? So it works great. Let's see that it works great. Okay, I have already replaced that. So here is my main. So yeah, what's the problem here now? Let me start from the beginning. Okay, so here is my app, right? So this file was all my tests, was, let's say, all my development settings, and I'm executing. Okay, it works. Everything works. Everything is awesome. And now, for some reason, I replace the file, or I have the wrong file, or something else happens. So I can evaluate this file front-end, right? So I was just considering this to be a part of this configuration exported for front-end application in form of JSON, right? So here we go. Here is my front-end JSON, so very simple config, right? And it has own representation as a pickle. That's it, very simple. So now, when it's simple, I simply restart and I get a panic. What's going on? What's the problem? What's wrong? Cannot find field on Go struct. What's wrong? Yeah, there is something wrong. The first thing probably that is wrong is okay, it's mentioning mode and URL, but no matter, here at least it's a bot, right? So this one does not have this bot configuration, and it's the file on the left is pickle file. It's absolutely valid file from the pickle perspective. It's evaluated and used. But from the perspective of this config, it's not valid. And actually this config becomes invalid because I'm trying to access the value on a nil pointer. And this is another reason why this Go binding doesn't go well, in my opinion, because we cannot rely on this when we have a perfectly defined configuration. We have a separate environment where this configuration is executed and validated, but the moment it is loaded to Go, we have no idea what it was. So config was perfectly fine from the pickle perspective, but it is just wrong config in this case. So if you mismatch the config or you delete something from the config, you cannot be sure it matches what you expect in your software anymore. And this is a bit of disappointing. I would say it is much disappointing, at least for me, because I was considering Pickle to solve my problems and to give me some fresh look and being a good tool to work with my config from A to Z. But it turned out that I have to take care of it myself. So I probably should write a bunch of tests, a bunch of validations. How is this config valid? Are there nil or non-nil values, and what's inside, right? So at this point, it lost its sense for me completely. I'm not working on such a huge application that I will get lost without the pickle. I can survive with JSONs or just environment variables, as I've been doing for years, and this is perfectly fine for me. Yeah, by the way, as you may see, you can generate JSON or YAML from any pickle file, and as soon as it's valid, you will get your JSON or pickle. So this is also the way you can work with it. But again, some configs, at least for me, then should be passed as a JSON, and some other are still environment variables. Environment variables because there might be secrets, there might be environment dependent configurations like URLs or names or something else, or debugging, right? So I don't want to rebuild the image each time I want to switch from prod to dev mode. And this is actually the thing I have to do right now. But that's my error. Don't repeat that. I will rework it shortly. So this video is exactly to explain why it is not the way we should do it. And the last thing that I want to mention is, for me, Go is a great language. I enjoy working with it very much. There are some difficulties, there are some quirks, like nil pointers, for example. Nevertheless, it's a great language, and I'm really, really, really happy with the fact that I can deliver something as a binary, as a single one binary. I can provide an example, .env file or a readme with instructions which environment variables should be set, but overall that's it. I can run it anywhere. I can copy one binary and just drop it on the server and execute it there. Yeah, obviously sometimes we need some system libraries, etc. That's the different story. But for now, for a default case, everything is there, and you just have binary have the runtime, and binary have a compiled code. So after working years with PHP, this feels really great. And with Pickle, when you're using Pickle, everywhere you go, every time you have to use Pickle, obviously you have to have this runtime. You have to download, install, and actually manage the Pickle environment, because the library that goes for the Pickle Go library, let me find it, the one here, this one library, it does a bunch of things, but in simple words, what it does, it simply wraps the Pickle eval execution and tell Pickle to grab some files, evaluate, and get the response. And that's basically it. So you need this Pickle installed globally for this for this package to do what it is supposed to do, to load actually your configs. And this is another thing that is a bit upsetting. So I know everything is Dockerized and Docker. I have no issues with that, really. I've been working with Docker since 2018 and that's fine. If you are going to use Pickle for your project, first thing that you have to think about is how will you distribute this config. That's the first thing. Distribution. Management and distribution. If you have a single repository that will be used by 3, 4, 5 or even more other applications and repositories, and they include it as a dependency, and you generate out of it config for you, probably that's a great approach. If you are like me, starting with a simple project, and probably you will have another project or front end that might use a few variables or a few definitions, few values from this config for its own config, probably it's not worth it. Because if you want to make config flexible and maintainable, you have to ship it separately. And probably there will be a way to ship these Pickle configs separately, and then it will become a much better tool when there will be a dedicated way of shipping it. Actually, there is a way like Pickle. I think there was somewhere here Pickle project package. No. So there is a way actually to publish, and there are some official looking URL that is actually referencing a GitHub, and it's still in development as far as I understood, or it might be changed so far. So this is something that you need to consider before using this, or in order to use this efficiently. Other than that, the second thing you must still consider, if you are doing this separately, or if you are shipping something as a backbone of your config, and then you're reading environment variables, and then you are overriding something with a different approach, how exactly you are doing this. So are you going to replace or actually mount over some local configs with, let's say, Docker Compose or config map in Kubernetes, or just edit it manually? That's actually the question. What you want to manage dynamically, and what do you want to leave like part of the build, for example? Because some things are great to be left as a part of the build, like build version. Right. So this is something to consider. And the third thing is obviously how to ship this all together. So in my case, I'm building container, everything is there, and it's working, and yeah, it's working. It will be working. And do you want, if you have many microservices, if you have a dozen of such containers, do you want every of them to have this Pickle inside there? This is also something to consider. Overall, this is a great initiative, I would say. It's still very young. It lacks momentum. It lacks support for now. Maintainers and community is not too big. Maintainers, in my opinion, are not too responsive so far. Some people are wandering around and experimenting and playing around, and some bigger issues got fixed. Some others, like related to Go bindings, are not Well, this is the pause of the of any product nowadays. If it's get attention, if it's get adoption, it will evolve. Otherwise, it will become a niche product, or it will simply die without being even born, actually, or known. I'm actually happy I did that. Now I know more about such a type of software, right, or configuration management. And my decision is to actually get closer to environment variables, and actually for the future stick with environment variables. I have not seen more flexible solution yet, especially taking in account we're being so pushed towards Kubernetes, Docker, etc. It's much easier to restore the container rather than rebuild the image because of the changes. And remember about 12-factor application. This is a really great, these are really great points how to build your software and do it the right way. I mean, make it solid, make it reliable, make it working. Thanks everyone for watching. Subscribe. See you in next video. Have a good one. Bye.